Alright. How's it going? Check this out. Snowed today. Good day, kind viewers. Welcome back to part 4 of the challenge. Today we have 5 more envelopes to harvest with a total of 15 done and dusted. If you need a quick top up on what's going on here, or if you're just jumping in at the deep end, here's a quick recap. As with an advent calendar, I open an envelope each day to discover a mystery art supply inside. I'm only allowed to use the art materials inside, but I can use my own tools. If there's no art materials inside, I can use up to 3 previously provided materials. And I'm only allowed to draw from this one still I've seen. And that is all we need to know before launching the bathysphere into an ocean of artistic misdeeds. What do you call a sailor with no teeth? A failure. What have we got in here, boys? Hey, it's funny time, yay! Right, so these are really cheap old time paints for kids. And here's what a normal brush looks like. In fact, this is that squirrel brush from before. And this is the brush that came with the set. Not even good enough to brush your teeth with. So yeah, here we go, cheap old paints with a horrible brush. Oh, painting with that brush was a chore. I don't think I've used these types of paints recently. Maybe when I was a kid. And you know what? I was expecting them to be so much worse. But actually the colors are really nice. Yeah, the colors are great. I'm not sure how light fast they are, or how long they'll even stay on the page. Maybe in a month you'll be able to blow them off with a sneeze. But now, yeah, they look great. Got that same challenge of the waxy kind of paper, so the paints don't really penetrate it, but man, those colors are so nice. So this is one of those cheapo paint sets that you can get on Alibaba or one of those buy anything sites, buy anything made in China, which this is. And there must be a million permutations of this one, and funnily enough most of them have a proper brush in them, so I don't know where my sister got this one from, but yeah. Do you know what? That don't look half bad. I like it, and the colors are great. Would I recommend these paints to anyone? Yeah, not as a serious art material you'd use for commercial paintings, obviously, but for a bit of fun, I don't think you can go wrong with these. There's something about them, and they're very bright. Good for kids. If you've got kids, go for it. Alright, let's see what's next. And cheapo paints followed by cheapo pencils. Right, so these are unbranded, cut down versions of color pencils you can get anywhere, and they look quite cheap, but will they work? Well, let's find out. Okay, so straight off I could tell this one's going to be a pain. Pencils just weren't making good headway into the paper. I mean, you had to press really hard to get any sort of line out of them. Otherwise they just felt really washed out. It's as if they were made of plastic or something. They're also pre-sharpened, so while making marks, I noticed that I kind of preferred using them on their side rather than head-on, which just tended to dent the paper, and again, it didn't really make any useful marks on there. Yeah, so it's a quick pencil sketch. There was a point where I just thought that this wasn't going to get any better, and I've decided to bail out as soon as I had something that resembled a finished picture. You could probably see from here how deep some of the indentations are, where I've had to press really hard to get any sort of mark out of the pencils. I'm not sure if it's because of the paper or because of the quality of the pencils themselves, but they did look quite cheap and they didn't inspire much confidence in me. I'm sure you don't have to shop around too long to get a better set of color pencils. These ones are pretty much bottom of the barrel material. So let's just move on from that one, shall we? And we have another funny one. Fun time again. What's that one say? Draw a house. Wow. Well, okay. So for this draw a house challenge, I'll be using the cheapo watercolors and the very fancy pants brush. Ah, now this is better. See, this is what happens when you use a proper brush. As you can tell, I'm not drawing a house per se, because the challenge was to draw from the scene that I've set at the beginning. So I've turned one of the fruits into a house. And it's quite fitting that I'm using kids' paints for this silly, immature idea. But because I'm an adult, I'm using an adult brush. So it doesn't look like much of a house yet. But what does a house have? Well, first, it needs a door for you to be able to get into the house. And it also needs a window, otherwise you can't see who's knocking. And last but not least, you need some grass outside the house to plant your carrots and vegetables and pomegranates. And of course a chimney, so obviously there's a working kitchen inside. All the mod cons. Yours for $2,000 a month. And that's the result. Yep, the challenge kind of knocked me for 6. I wasn't expecting something of that caliber. I was expecting maybe some paint or some pencils or something. I was inside a house drawing some fruits for a funny little challenge. Next. Fancy. So these are really fine felt tip pens, extremely thin, very bright. It's a rainbow set. Okay, so I've mentioned before with the Muji pens that using really thin pens on this paper was kind of a chore. So I decided to go for a kind of a round shading technique here. So see, I'm using the pens in a circular manner as someone who has the shakes instead of traditional shading. So most of the shapes I'll be making will be quite circular. It's kind of like when people were discovering polygons in graphics. Certain people went for ellipses instead of polygons. So they built everything out of bubbles instead of bricks. What am I talking about? And that's the finished result. As I mentioned before, you can't really press down on this paper too much, especially with these pens, as you'll probably damage the pens, and it was quite hard to make any meaningful looking mark without pressing too hard. So I had to go over some lines a number of times for it to make any sense. I just think this particular one, not really too sure about it. I think the mediums didn't really gel together. It'd be nice on a different kind of paper, maybe marker type paper. A really nice bright pens though, certainly good for minute detail. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what's next. Ooh, more pens. More fine pens. So here we have fine liner felt tip pens, very subtle floral kind of colors here. Again, very thin, fine, good for detail. Let's see how we get on. So I've started off with the grayish looking one, the more transparent looking one, and it just wasn't making a mark on the paper, so I went for a darker color here. And I ran into the same problem as the previous set, it's just they're very thin pens. Again, see, look, my camera ran out of battery there, and yeah, apologize, you missed a little bit of the action there. But again, you didn't miss much. It's just a lot of shading, and it takes quite a long time because these pens are very, very fine, and this paper does not accommodate fine pens. Yeah, so once I kind of had the rough shape of what I wanted to express here, I went in with the other colors, but yeah, this didn't really work that well. I was kind of wishing for a thicker pen at that moment in time. Yeah, so the result isn't fantastic. I went for a detail shot of the top of the gourd with the wobbly bits and snooty spaghetti snot hangy spiral spring things. I tried to do a little bit of a shadow play there, but I don't think it really worked out that well. I do want to make another video about these pens because they're actually quite interesting, but in this context I don't think they really work that well. So let's move on to the next bit. Ah gee golly willikers, is it that time already? So the next bit is the outro, and that's another 5 challenges in the bag, out of the envelope on the floor, a feather in the cap, a scratch on the prison wall, banana for the tallyman, and an exit stage left. We are but 4 challenges away from demolishing this task. Thank you for your comments and feedback. They definitely make this more fun for me. Keep them coming. Next week has a challenge that was the most unexpected turn of events out of all of them. Auf Wiedersehen!